So the movie is called Greenland because that's where they're trying to get to. And Greenland is, well, the US government have built quite a few nuclear bunkers there 40, 50 years ago that have been in disuse. But unbeknownst to us, that the information about this comet hitting Earth was available to them, of course, way before it was available to us, and they had already been planning how the logistics of how to get as much of the population over there, and then also who in that population is applicable, who qualifies to get over there, and they're basically being flown over there at incredibly short notice in military planes. But I also think Greenland just symbolically. There's such a freshness and hope. It feels like the last bastion of nature, of mankind, of hopes, of something so beautiful and raw and untouched. I think on the one hand, John feels like he has a lot to make up for his family. He's living with an exceptional amount of guilt, which we discover as the movie goes on exactly what is happening. But there's obviously been a breakdown in his relationship with his wife. He feels very badly for his kid, who he can see is hurting from what's been going on between them. So he now feels this additional responsibility to make sure that his family is safe. But even more than that, what I like is just the regular normality in some ways of this man who could be any man. He's every man. He's just a father who will do anything to protect his wife and his kid. And that's something that I think is, again, why I know from my experience and friends and other people that have seen it, why they find it so powerful is in some ways the lack of heroism in these heroes. You know, they're everyday heroes. It's not one man standing against a country or one, you know, to be honest, the kind of roles I often play myself, this is not that guy. He has no special skills. He just has a lot of love and passion and courage, which I think would be brought out in almost anybody in these circumstances. But you also see it coming from John's wife, Allison, and even from the kid. Even the kid has his moments where he has to stand up and be incredibly courageous to help keep his family together, you know. And again, that's what I loved was that in the family, you know, and then also seeing that as we brush past people, as we come into contact with other people who are heroes who help us, who are villains who try to stop us in our way. And it's again another theme that I really liked in the movie was this idea of there's a little bit of good in even the worst of us, and a little bit of bad in even the best of us. And I think that that's really what this movie paints so beautifully as we go on this road trip to try and survive, is people doing good actions, bad people doing the right actions in moments, and then good people doing terrible things, but maybe for the right reasons. And so you as an audience, you're so involved and you're being dragged into this, but at the same time, you're like, it's so hard to kind of accuse or point the finger, because you go, would I do the same thing? I'm only trying to save my wife. So it's fascinating in that respect. I think what I love is the movie becomes, one, it's highly entertaining and exciting, but then it really becomes a conversation afterwards as to, you know, again, who we are and who would we be in this situation. Again, one of the things I really loved about this movie was how, you know, often you do scenes and you enjoy doing them and they can be powerful, but you still know that they're ridiculous and they're just part of the story that you're trying to tell. Whereas these scenes felt so truthful and so devastating. And that was definitely a scene that struck a chord with me, when you go from essentially watching the Super Bowl, watching parts of a comet hitting the Earth and thinking, this is fun, this is going to be cool, to realizing, oh my God, something so much more dangerous and devastating is afoot. And the people that you were looking at, who you were probably going to golf with the next day, you're never going to see again. And you're having to leave your kids' best friends in the driveway. And the performances in that scene were also so profound and devastating. So when one of her friends comes out with her child, begging us to take her child to the Air Force Base to give her a chance. But of course we can't. But that was played so powerfully that every time I had to drive away, it was goosebumps and tears welling, and the whole neighborhood could hear it and see it. And again, it's when this is written so beautifully and then directed and performed so well, it just, it leaves a truth and a power behind it, because you could just so see that happening. And that's this movie the whole way through. There was pretty much no green screen, no nothing. It just involved me looking down the road, imagining seeing almost like a ripple effect coming up, and then falling back onto the ground. No, there was everything else was just put in digitally. This movie grabbed me right from the start. I always love these larger ideas where there is some kind of crisis going on, either with a community, a country, or humanity. But what I really loved about this, and knowing the director that I was going to work with, but also knowing the script that I was reading, was that it felt like an inside job. It came from the inside out. That it's more, you're involved with this family, you're involved with these people, it's like with this intimate level of knowledge of character portraits. But then, rather than the typical kind of action movie where you're focusing on the bigger thing, the comet, that's almost in the background. It only builds as the movie goes on. But this is really, I felt like the themes in the movie, that it was incredibly emotional and fraught. And it's just this family going through hell, but them as a snapshot of what all of humanity are going through. In terms of just the gauntlet being thrown down from moment to moment, and the challenges getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And what will they do within that? What will a family do to stay together? What will a father do to protect his family? And that's also what I liked, is it wasn't your typical hero who's going up there to like punch the comet in the face. He's, this is just a simple man and a family. Almost the hero here is almost the family unit themselves. The mother's a hero, the son is a hero. And sometimes heroism is literally just fighting enough to survive. So I really enjoyed the subtleties in it. It took me by surprise, the freshness. The reality as well is, again, not all about the spectacle and the action, but also about the truth, as we're seeing now in days of this pandemic. Is sometimes it's just the messiness, it's the not knowing, it's the disinformation, it's the how do you even make it to the airport? There's traffic. How do you say goodbye to your neighbors who 2 minutes ago were your best friends and everything was hunky-dory, and in that short space of time you realize, oh my God, life is about to change for everybody and I'll never see you again, and I got to now basically drive away and leave you to die. There's so many kind of moral challenges and reflections in the movie, as well as all the bells and whistles, all the action and the spectacle, which I feel is even more powerful and more truthful and authentic, because we are taking it, we start on the micro, on the family, on the human, on the people. And therefore you're drawn into this very grounded, organic relationship that could be any family on the planet going through any of the multiple stresses that families and relationships go through. That makes the rest of the movie and all that spectacle so much more powerful and real, because there's very much a truth to it. So I felt like it could definitely take an audience by surprise and take them on a journey and inspire them and scare the beheebie-Jesus out of them, and also make them sit and think about where we are in the world today. Where are we as humans? And as we're being asked this question, as with everything that's going on in our planet. I guess he's just a regular guy. He's a family man. He's a structural engineer, works on skyscrapers, has a beautiful little kid. And as we start this movie, we see him in kind of an uncomfortable situation where he's stressed. He's been out of the family house. He's moving back home, trying to make it work with his wife, trying to be there for his kid who doesn't quite understand the dynamics between his mother and his father, and a kid who's also suffering from diabetes. He's not very well, and very sensitive child as well. And so you kind of house John Garrity in this almost like a family drama at first, but with this almost movie monster building in the background. And by the time that comes into play, this Comet Clark, which has taken everybody by surprise, you're already now very much involved with John Garrity as a father, as a working man, and as somebody trying to bring his family back together, but not quite understanding the few additional challenges that are going to present themselves and what it really means to bring your family together.